Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society bringing you our nightly update. And I have some optimistic news here this evening. We've seen a little bit of good news with Jerry throughout the day today. Our little 10-10 spot, that's going to be off the board tomorrow. Priscilla is down to a tropical storm and has really succumbed to some of that dry, stable air mass that it is moving into. Still going to be looking at the potential for flooding out here into the southwestern United States, but it is getting quite a bit weaker than what it was originally forecast. On top of that, now we also still have this non-tropical coastal low that'll be along the east coast of the United States developing this week. And you could start to see a little bit of that starting to materialize down here along the end of the frontal boundary. So, just like taking a quick look at the satellite, let's go ahead and jump into all of this here tonight. So, with the Atlantic outlook, again, we have Jerry here and we have our little 10-10 spot. This is not going to last much longer. As you can see, it is very close to the Mexican mainland here, and it is still going to continue off into mainland Mexico. The potential for flash flooding does exist, even though this does not have a name. So, folks out there, if you've got friends, family, or anybody watching from down here in the eastern portions of mainland Mexico, please be very careful over the next coming days because of the fact that this is going to be moving through and creating the potential for quite a bit of rainfall. Now, real quick, we're going to look at Earth Null here tonight, and as you can see, we'll highlight in here on our little 10-10 spot. Again, it is right along the coast. The chances of this being on or becoming anything tropical in nature is going to be very low, and I do expect this to be off the board. We shouldn't be talking about this tomorrow. And then we have Priscilla, and then Octave down here. They kept Octave at the 5, and when we get to the Eastern Pacific, I'll show you, and I don't know why, but maybe it'll have an opportunity to produce a little bit of shower and thunderstorm activity. Right now, it's a naked swirl. So, let's jump in here where Jerry is concerned, because I do want to show something before we get to the public advisory, and I got some good news on the wind speed probabilities too. So what I have here is down to the 1,000 millibar level. So this is just a few hundred feet off the ground. The surface, we did get here just a couple minutes ago. I had not had the 6 p.m. update. We were still working with the 5. So now we're down to the surface. We've got our trusty green circle here, located right on the surface circulation. Now, let's start coming up in height. And there's a reason why I'm talking about this right away. So, as we come up to the 850 millibar level, this is approximately 1 mile above sea level right there. And as you can see, they're lined up pretty much right on top of one another. But, let's go to about 10,000 feet above sea level. Uh-oh. It's not stacked on top of it. So the 700 millibar level, we're starting to get a little bit of tilt with height with the circulation. When it comes to a tropical cyclone, the circulation wants to be vertically aligned. Right now, we do not have vertical alignment. Let's come up one more slot. So instead of 10,000 feet, let's jump up to the 18,000 foot level. Uh-oh, we have a very asymmetrical tropical cyclone. Now, that doesn't mean that we're still not expecting impacts. But what this does mean is that the chance for this to intensify, like we were talking about yesterday with the 5 p.m. discussion of a 20% chance of rapid intensification, in this configuration, it is a 0% chance of rapid intensification. So it, as you could see, the mid-level circulation, or the 500 millibar, is actually self-shearing over the surface circulation, and on top of that, the winds at the lower levels, as you could see, will come back down to the 850 millibar. These winds here, these steering winds, are a lot stronger than up here. And what it's doing is the surface is outrunning the mid-level. And then the mid-level is causing some shear on top of that. And I did pull up here. I should have slid this over here. Here is the satellite for Jerry. And while we still had the sun up, all of our low-level clouds are highlighted in yellow. This is a great feature from Cyclonic WX's website. This is the RGB, or red, green, blue, false color, daytime visible satellite. And yes, we can see the swirl at night, but it doesn't put the big-time yellow highlight on it like it does during the day. As you can see, the surface circulation is well in front of where the mid-level is. Now, just in the last couple frames, just in the very last couple frames, we've got our surface circulation is right here. We have one area of thunderstorm and number 2 area of developing thunderstorm around the center. Now, we still have nothing out here. That's a good sign. It is still a very sheared tropical cyclone, although it still packs a little bit of a punch. So with the 5 p.m. Advisory here, primary advisory from the National Hurricane Center, Jerry is located at 14.8 degrees north, 54.7 degrees west, about 605 miles east-southeast of the northern Leeward Islands. Maximum sustained winds of 60 miles an hour, currently moving west-northwest at 23 miles an hour. That's too fast. And the minimum central pressure is down to 1,000 millibars. Now, we definitely have tropical storm watches in effect for Guadeloupe all the way up through the chain over and stopping before the British Virgin Islands. Though interest elsewhere in for the Northern Leeward Islands, British and U.S. Virgin Islands should still monitor the progress of Jerry. We're not 100% sold on this because as far as it turning prior, it certainly looks likely. But the halves had jumped back earlier and was kind of in line with everybody else turning. And then in the last run, it's kind of popped back just a little uncomfortably close. And that's something that we're kind of watching on. Because right now, even though halves is showing that, everybody else is like, nah, not really. So it could be where we don't have a lot. But as far as winds are concerned, but I got a question about the rain, and it might get a little concerning. So obviously with our hazards affecting land here, we've got our wind. Tropical storm conditions are always going to be possible in areas where there's a tropical storm watch, hence the tropical storm watch. Our rainfall, this is where I get a little, I'm not 100% sure. Because of the fact that these islands are volcanic islands, and then we have higher terrain on these islands, and it's not going to take a lot to potentially cause flash flooding, and especially in the areas of higher terrain. So I got a little concerned. So rainfall on Thursday into early Friday, 2 to 4 inches of rain with local storm total maxima to 6 inches are expected across the Leeward Islands, British Virgin Islands, and U.S. Virgin Islands from Thursday into Saturday morning due to Jerry. This rainfall brings a risk of flash flooding, especially in areas of steep terrain. Yes. And then the surf. Look, all right, you got a tropical cyclone sitting very close to your shoreline. Please stay out of the water. Please. We don't need statistics. If we look at the forecast track, now the forecast track has brought the, you know what, I think we'd be better served by pulling up the interactive here so we can get up close and personal. And let's flip this because I hate that other gray screen. If we look here, the forecast cone has now slipped away from Antigua and is now, right now they're looking at, I did watch the Antigua and Barbuda Meteorological Services update about an hour ago, and the closest point was 81 miles. Now, that was the old advisory, or that might have been the new advisory, actually. I think it was the 11 a.m., so we could have had a small adjustment, but as of earlier, the closest approach to the islands was forecast to be 81 miles. And again, that's not very far, but this storm is offset, and a lot of the wind field is on the eastern side, as you can see here. So if this were to come by, the winds might not be the big story with this, but there's definitely going to be some rain associated with it. And as long as we can keep this well away, if this does not hit the islands, then the chances of it hitting Bermuda are going to be a little lower as well. So again, just monitor this, folks. Nothing to be overly, like scared of or anxious of. Just keep a watch on this, and we'll definitely get through this one. This is not storms of the past. Looking at the spaghetti plots again, halves yesterday evening after we got off the live, halves came in here. Well, these two now are halves. And as you can see, just a little bit closer to Antigua and Barbuda there. Just a little bit. And this is what's kind of, like the majority of the guidance obviously is way out here. Bermuda being right here. So again, if halves verifies, then halves obviously brings it closer to the islands, or the islands or the archipelago of Bermuda. So it really, for Bermuda, you guys got to watch and see how close this gets to the islands themselves down here to the northern leewards. If it gets really, really close or goes over it, not forecast to, but if it does, then the angle of approach for Bermuda is a little bit different. But as we could see, the majority of the guidance wants to turn this out and away. That would be, hey, I'm all for that. That would be great if we could avoid any land impact. Maybe a little bit of residual, peripheral, you get some rain and stuff like that. We obviously don't want any flooding, no loss of life, no loss of property. But, if you could get some benefit out of this, hey, that would be great. Our key messages, as you can see here, obviously the tropical storm conditions are possible in areas of the tropical storm watch. And then the heavy rainfall. We've already discussed both of these with our hazards affecting land. And you'll see when we get to Priscilla, we only have two key messages here. Priscilla, not so much. There's more there. Now, our rainfall forecast, as you can see, located in areas of the darker green, 2 to 4 inches. And it also getting all the way down here to potentially Dominica and all points further north and to the east, getting off maybe over here towards the Virgin Islands as well. So again, this 2 to 4 dark green area with local amounts that could be around 6 inches. So all of our islands, Guadeloupe, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, Saba, St. Kitts and Nevis, or Nevis. I did learn that I was mispronouncing that, but I'm not really surprised. St. Martin, and then the Virgin Islands, British and U.S. Virgin Islands as well. So please, folks, just exercise caution. Nothing to be too overly concerned with. Just we're looking at the potential for some rain. Now, right here, right off of the very first sentence of the discussion on Jerry, despite Jerry's significantly sheared structure, the storm's maximum winds are solidly at 50 knots. Now, I did not pull up, and I do apologize for that. We'll jump over here to Tropical Tidbits real quick, and we will pull up one of the earlier reconnaissance missions. And as you could see, a lot of our heavier winds are located on the north and eastern side of the circulation. Now, granted, the circulation was here, but when that last pass took place, the circulation was there. So as you could see, a lot of this northeastern side is where the heaviest of the winds are. The reason for that is the overall pressure gradient between the storm itself and this high pressure ridge to its north and east. This pressure gradient is where your strongest winds are going to be, right there. You could almost draw a direct line, and that's where you're going to get your winds. So that's what we're looking at. That is helpful because if you look down here on the southwestern side, it's not a lot there, and that would be the side that is facing the islands as it moves through. Now, we're not going to go through all of this here tonight, and the reason is the threat level has reduced significantly today. I'm not going to say that there's still not a threat there, but what we were looking at yesterday compared to what we're looking at today, completely different. So right here in paragraph number 2, the HMON and HAVS hurricane model bring the center a little bit closer than that, but at this time, those are not considered the most likely scenario. So this, it gives it a little bit of leeway, but it is not likely to be that outcome. Right here, later in the weekend and early next week, Jerry is forecast to turn north-northeastward and then, or north-northeastward and then northeastward. And the bulk of the guidance also moves the storm safely to the southeast of Bermuda in about 4 days. But the average area of day 4 NHC tracks has an average area of 130 nautical miles. So please keep in mind that it is not set in stone just yet. But again, some of the more optimistic and positive signs that we've seen, moderate to strong northwesterly shear appears likely to continue for the next few days. That's beautiful, because if we look down here at our intensities, we don't have that 100 miles an hour no more. The maximum intensity that we see, yes, it does bring it to a hurricane, but it doesn't bring it to a hurricane for at least another 48 hours. We are looking at the potential of closest, kind of the closest proximity to the islands being tomorrow night into early Friday morning. This is Friday night, Friday evening at 48 hours. So that is allowing a little bit of extra distance to be gained between the storm center and the island itself before it were to achieve hurricane intensities. That would be, again, it's optimistic compared to what we were looking at yesterday. No doubt about it. It's definitely a better scenario and a better situation. Now, again, for our friends out there into the islands, Tomorrow afternoon, it says Thursday at 2 p.m. here for the most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds. Please make sure you have, the loose items out there. We're not saying board up the windows or none of that stuff. But make sure, like your trash receptacles or maybe a light little charcoal grill that you have outside, maybe a couple buckets, maybe a light potted plants or just stuff like that that are exposed to, areas of higher winds. Please just secure those items so you don't end up having a mess afterwards and they don't end up in maybe a neighbor's yard or something like that. That's all. It's not really looking like, with this sheared structure, it's certainly not looking like it's going to be a major, major impact, although some impacts will certainly be felt. Our wind speed probabilities. Now I'm going to show you this in a graphical format. And as you could see, yesterday we had all the way down getting towards Barbados and down here towards Dominica and stuff like that. They were all contained within the 5 to 10% range. But notice how even that has shifted well to the north here. As we get closer, the probabilities become more and more certain. Well, if we remember from what we were looking at yesterday, Bermuda hasn't really changed very much. Still a 19% chance of seeing tropical storm force winds. But if you remember all the names that I read off yesterday, anything that I read off yesterday evening was above 10% for tropical storm force winds. I've got 4 to read you tonight. Saint Martin, 14% chance of tropical storm force winds. St. Eustatius, 10% chance of tropical storm force winds. St. Kitts and Nevis, 11% chance of tropical storm force winds. And then Barbuda, the one that was running over 50% yesterday, 31% chance of tropical storm force winds here tonight. Nobody, Bermuda with a 6% and Barbuda with a 5% chance of seeing those 50 knot or 58 mile an hour winds. This, folks, if I didn't mention your island or location, your chances of seeing tropical storm force winds are under 10%, which is, I honestly, from what we were looking at yesterday, and even considering on maybe even trying to run, a multiple lives just for the updates and stuff like that, no. At 31%, you're barely in the range of tropical storm watch, but there's just enough uncertainty in the track that these percentages still could rise. Depending on exactly what Jerry is doing. If we look at the ensembles, now the Euro does not have much at all being able to get close to the islands, well away from it. The majority of the guidance and the highest probability would bring this well to the east of the islands. We still, though, have our low pressure over here. And this, I'm afraid that this is going to cause some significant problems for the east coast of the United States. Now, granted, we see a little bit of stuff right here. But as we go through, we'll have to see if that can actually maintain itself. Once this low pressure area off the east coast develops, and then the trough from that drags down, getting something out here into the Western Caribbean might not be the easiest thing in the world to do. This and the trough that will be associated with it, not gonna necessarily be very conducive for tropical cyclone development down there in the Western Caribbean at all. Now, if we compare our Euro legacy with our GEFS, again, we're out 7 days. We do have our coastal low right here. Notice that our islands, nothing is near that as well. I'm not worried about this. And then we have our spot and a little bit, couple here and there. But when it comes to the American models, you have to take this area of the Western Caribbean with a grain of salt unless verified by other models due to its convective feedback bias that sits right here, especially at this time of year. I wouldn't be surprised, and I honestly, I don't look at the deterministic mean sea level pressure runs like GFS, Euro, Icon, CMC. I don't look at any of the deterministic runs for sea level pressure. I use them for other reasons, but not that. And I can almost guarantee you that the GFS is spinning up storms, or has been, will be, very soon, because it's just that time of the year to where the GFS is like, up, oh, shower and thunderstorm down there, time to spin up a major hurricane. And it's literally just like that. It's like, oh, look, we got a cluster of showers and thunderstorms, time to turn it into a major. And that usually occurs run after run after run. And it's always, like 240 hours and beyond. And then when you get it close to where it could be an actual thing, then it jumps back in time again. So, I wouldn't worry too much if you see a deterministic run on social media over the coming days to where it's like, oh, look, it's Armageddon. Yeah, sure. And it's the GFS. All right. Again, our coastal low, taking a look at, this is the Euro AI. It's got a couple of them that get it a little close. But again, the majority of the guidance for Jerry keeps it out into the open waters. And if you notice down here, there's not a lot. There's not a lot at all. But there's something right there, and that is headed that way. This I could see being a more plausible scenario down here into the Eastern Pacific than anything in the Western Caribbean. Now, we are going to compare the AI from the Euro with the AI of the Google DeepMind. This has been performing excellent this year. I'm very, very impressed with Google DeepMind's abilities in all basins, not just the Atlantic. I mean, this has performed phenomenally well across areas of the Pacific and the Atlantic all season long. And it's quite impressive for a debuted model, still in its experimental stage. If we take a look at what Jerry is, again, this is probability based only, strictly probability based. Each line is representative of 2%. As you can see, we have 4 that bring it close to Barbuda right here. This is, wrong thing. That's Barbuda. We have 4. That is 8% of seeing it get near or overland. We do have some that get it a little close, but the mean for the ensemble is out here. Again, we were looking at approximately 81 miles, and we don't have tropical storm force winds that are extending off of the southwestern quadrant 81 miles. So that could leave it to where we see gusts, not sustained winds. And obviously with some of these rain bands that could be associated with it, that's where you're going to see your heaviest impacts are within those rain bands themselves. Now, again, if we pull this up and then we roll up here towards Bermuda, DeepMind, not even close. Safely away. Now, what we're going to do, though, is we are going to run this forward. Actually, we're going to bring this up a little further to the north. And if you notice, I go out all of these. And now we know that there's going to be a coastal low developing, right? Well, here we are. We're at day 7, and you don't see any circles out here off the East Coast. There is a reason why. Because the Google DeepMind is strictly looking for tropical cyclones. There's going to be a low pressure there, but it's non-tropical. Now, if I turn the Euro on and we come back, as you could see there, the Euro has a little something. Again, we're definitely looking at a coastal low going forward, and I will show that here when we get to the deterministic runs in the very next couple frames. If we try to run it out looking for anything tropical in the Western Caribbean getting down there into the Gulf, you see a couple lines, you see a couple dots. Again, each one is 2%. So if I draw a box right here, you have five lines, 10%. Now, I know that there's one of them right here that shows, oh Lord, it's going to be something. It could be, a category 2 headed for New Orleans. Folks, it's 10%. That is a 2% chance. You got another one right there that's a tropical storm, but that's 4%. Please, if people share this on social media, don't get nervous. Don't let it get to you, because the probabilities are very, very low at this time. And even if I were to run this out, there's, one or two more circles that try to develop. But again, there's not much of this strong signal. Now, that other wave that's out there, again, there's not a lot of a strong signal. If it were to get its act together early, it could be a little something. But even if it does, it still turns before it gets to the islands. So again, there's going to be a, kind of polka dotted little smattering of, something here, something there. And you'd always expect that with the ensembles, because each ensemble member is slightly different from the others to include the amount of uncertainty that exists out here in the tropics. So right now, we will keep a watch on it, but for the rest of the folks, I wouldn't be too worried about that one out there. As you can see, that first wave, there goes that first wave. That's actually wave number 2 that would come off the African coastline. And then that's getting out towards third week of October at that point in time. All right, now we're going to jump into our deterministic runs. Now we have the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. This is representative of areas of spin or cyclonic vorticity at the 850 millibar level, which is approximately 5,000 feet or around a mile above the ocean surface. Now, as we run this forward, we will note both models keep it well away from the islands, and that is a good thing. Again, maybe some peripheral impacts. We'll get it out to hour 72. Now, here we are. We are starting to get the development of our low off the East Coast. As I run this forward, you will note that even though it's non-tropical, this is going to be a problem. Now I'm out to 120. And as you could see, anywhere along the north side of this is going to have onshore flow. The problem is, and then with this squall line, that squall line would be working its way around the periphery, and this squall line here, that could cause some problems as well. Now, as I run this forward, watch what happens. It's a little bit of a difference. The GFS wants to get it away from the coastline. The Euro takes its time, just because of where it was located. As you can see, the GFS is, south of Martha's Vineyard here. We'll go south of Long Island, the eastern tip of Long Island, maybe, somewhere in that range. The Euro, on the other hand, is very, very close, and almost the core of this over, Delaware, Maryland, DC area ish. The problem is on the north side of that, this would just devastate the coastal communities in New Jersey, because if you notice, this doesn't really move quickly. All right, you get the development. There's your big time onshore winds. GFS is a little bit quicker on what the Euro is. And then the GFS also kind of gets out of the way a little bit quicker than what the Euro does. And then as we continue to run this forward, as you can see, a very large ridge of high pressure builds over the southeastern United States. Now, again, we looked at, now we're going to run this all the way out to 10 days. And if you notice, even though we looked at some of the ensemble members that showed something there, the one thing down in the Western Caribbean, here's the kicker. The Euro, out 10 days, this is not a Central American gyre. This, on the other hand, is. Now, you'd have a high pressure ridge right here with the flow that would come around like this, a low pressure here with the trough coming back like this. That would be kind of the setup. But again, the GFS really kind of over amplifies a lot of this stuff down here. And I'll push this all the way out. And if you notice, it favors Central America. And of course, like always, getting out here to the, the edge of the run on the GFS, where there's absolutely no skill after 240. It really struggles at 240 even. But we take it all the way out. There you go. There's a tropical system spinning up. Now, I would expect the GFS to continue to do that just because it is that time of the year. So now that we know where our quote-unquote areas of rotation or spin, vorticity, or our seeds are, now we're going to take a look at where our moisture is. And this is critical for tropical cyclone development, because if you do not have moisture in the atmosphere above the surface, it's very difficult to be able to get yourself going because of all the dry air that is out there. So again, as always, we have the Euro on the left, the GFS on the right. Top two graphics represent the 500 millibar level, which is approximately 3.5 miles above the ocean surface, around 18,000 feet. On the bottom two graphics, we have the 700 millibar level, which is again approximately 2 miles above the ocean surface, around 10,000 feet. So we are going to run this forward and we will see, there goes Jerry. A lot of this tropical moisture associated with this, even though Jerry is right here. But then look at this. All of that is flowing into Jerry. All of this moisture coming in like that. And you could really see it on the 700 millibar level, where you're going to have that moisture train coming up from the monsoon trough in the intertropical convergence zone down there closer to the equator, is going to be streaming up towards the storm. You can kind of see a little bit right there with the Euro. And then if we look at the 500, you can kind of see a little bit. The Euro is nowhere near as moist as what we see here with the GFS. But again, there will be a little bit of moisture inflow coming from the south associated with Jerry. Now, as we run this forward, we know that we're going to get our coastal low. So here we have, with the GFS and the Euro, at the 500 millibar level, there's our low there. There's our low there. At the 700 millibar level, Jerry's up here, or not Jerry, but that other coastal nor'easter type low, and it's there. They're not vertically stacked for one. There is a lot of shear involved, and they're not aligned. But, and I'm sure that all of our followers here in the state of Florida already know, the backside of that low pressure is going to be bringing in your first decent little shot of cooler air. The lows here expected into the panhandle could get into the mid to lower 50s associated with this. And that would be like, oh wow, fall's here. You know, everybody grab your pumpkin spice and you know, your cinnamon brooms and your just all your pumpkin stuff, because that would mean fall has pretty much arrived if we're looking at that. 50s for the lows. Be a little chilly in the morning. Now, as I run this forward, here we are day 5, getting into day 6. Notice how on the upper 2 graphics and the bottom 2 graphics, how that dry air remains over the Florida Peninsula. And then, boom. If the Euro is the one that verifies, look at this second shot of dry air that enters the frame. Where the GFS is concerned, because the GFS was out over a little bit further to the east, that dry air is shooting down a little bit further off to the east. We still have the high pressure ridge over the northern Gulf Coast states that is creating a lot of that dry air to still remain and exist over the state of Florida. But if the Euro verifies, look at the amount of dry air with the next trough that comes in. Folks, if this is what turns out to be, I am going to be very excited for the season, because we are out at about October 18th at this point. It would be extraordinarily difficult to get anything to develop. It would be extremely difficult to get anything to develop in the Western Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico with this particular setup where the Euro is calling for. The amount of dry air, the shear, just the overall compression of the moisture. If you look, this would be absolutely ideal. This runs through the Dominican Republic, has cleared Jamaica, and is down over the northern shore of Honduras and back into Belize and eats up the entire Gulf. This would be huge, because in 2 frames I'm going to show you where the MJO would be at about that time. And if we get the MJO, we really need to slip that thing into phase 3. Because once we get it into phase 3, phase 4, phase 5, it's very, very difficult for the Central American gyre to get going. By the time that the MJO were to come back around, it's too late. Too many frontal boundaries. And there may be the opportunity, at least for U.S. interests and the Gulf of Mexico, to where we could protect this due to some frontal boundaries. I'm not saying that there's not going to be any more storms out there, but we could see the end of the threat for the United States. Now, South Florida, we'll talk about that. But for the majority of the U.S., South Florida, you just stick out there like a thumb. You know, and we could get, if you guys remember Etta and Nicole and stuff like that, you could get something down there in the Western Caribbean that kind of snakes back and forth and then maybe clips you and then goes on about its business. But right now, if these were to verify, now the GFS brings a lot of that bulky dry air out here over parts of the Atlantic, and then we remember with watching our seeds, we had something try to develop into the Caribbean here, but there is a kind of a telltale sign to where the trough here is linear. The trough here is angular. That's a big difference. because there's going to be a shear component associated with that. Nah, maybe a little bit here, but everything to the south of this linear trough is kind of free game at that point. An angular trough, like we see with the euro there, that would be. I would be so excited that we may be able to get through the season without having a bona fide tropical cyclone in the Gulf. I mean, hell, 7 years ago, 7 years ago today, Hurricane Michael was named, and we all know what that turned into. Um, Tomorrow's the 7. Is it 7? Yeah. Tomorrow's the 7 year anniversary. Or no, the 10th is the 7th year anniversary of landfall. Tomorrow's where things get really, really scary in our page memories. Uh, James and I were going through that this afternoon, and oh Lord, when we first started, that was our first publicly broadcasted and forecasted storm. And granted, ain't nobody gonna go all the way back to 2018 on the page. Like, I wish you the best of luck, unless you go search it. But you take a look at what we posted on that, and it is unbelievable. We had dozens, like, we were posting every single model. I was ripping wind speeds, models, everything. I mean, just everything that we could find. We were posting it, and trying to uh, inform as many people to get out of harm's way. That isn't one that we knew early, that wasn't one that you were going to want to sit around for. And well, it ended up unfortunately being a Category 5 landfall. So, all right. Now, again, Euro on the left, GFS on the right. These two graphics represent our wind shear. This represents the winds from about 5,000 feet, or the 850 millibar level, to about 40,000 feet, or the 200 millibar level. So as you go up in height, the millibar levels get lower and lower. So as we run this forward, there goes Jerry. As you can see, there's still a little bit of that shear. It is moving almost in the same direction of some of that shear, and it's really, really being detrimental to the storm. Now, as we run this forward, here comes our coastal low. We're starting to get that bend and that kink here, and our coastal low will develop in its wake. As we roll this forward, there it is. We're out 5 days, 6 days. As you can see, there's a decent amount of shear. There goes the, here goes the GFS kind of becoming a little bit more linear with that trough, as you could see there. And then we get little areas of vorticity that spin up along it. Where the Euro is concerned, that is non-tropical, as you see there. That is not very tropical at all. We ran the seeds on that. We'll come back and run it again and show everybody that that's not at the 850 millibar level. You don't see any areas of spin in the Gulf. Now, if we look at this, you see the area of spin in the Gulf. Again, it is an upper level low, non-tropical in nature. But, again, with the Euro and the GFS getting out here to 240 hours over day 10, you can see we have a little bit of shear here, but a pocket of not so much right there. The Euro, on the other hand, has all of this coming like this, and then these winds coming up like that. It is this section of the shear that is going to, if anything were to try to develop, it's going to shear. And the moisture and the mid-level is going to want to run that way. That would be ideal. I mean, and you can see there's a little bit of shear over the Gulf as well. So again, it's things that we've got to monitor and watch for. I don't see anything imminent going forward. Once we get through with the potential threat here with Jerry over the next 48 hours, 36, 48 hours, after that, it's going to get kind of quiet. And we really hope for that. So if we take a look at the GEFS and GFS for our MJO, we can see both of them are calling for it to get to phase 2 and potentially run to phase 3 rather quickly. You've got the end of the GEFS right there and the end of the GFS right here. I don't see this amplifying like that. I really don't. But if you look, if we could get this into phase 3, phase 4, and phase 5, it's still going to take time for this to come back around to our basin. The MJO rolls counterclockwise on this graphic. So that amount of time, by the time that it gets back, I highly doubt that there'll be any tropical opportunities because we're probably going to flip the basin into a wintertime setup. Now, again, though, we still have to keep a watch on it because, as you could see here for week 2 from the Global Tropics Hazards Outlook, this came out yesterday. We still have the potential of seeing something down here into the Western Caribbean and Gulf, especially, but more favored towards the Eastern Pacific. Getting into October 22nd to the 28th, we still have to watch that area down there. Now, again, if what we saw with the Euro does verify, I would not be surprised if these development percentages would go down and then shift to the primary focus being there in the Eastern Pacific for week 3. So I don't have a lot of, I just don't have a lot of like, oh no, out there in the Atlantic right now. I just don't see, once we get through this potential threat with Jerry, I don't see a lot. And I'm thankful to be able to report that. All right, if anybody's got any questions regarding, Jonathan went ahead and got Dawn's question. Let's see. Far enough inland and above sea level that flooding isn't an issue for me. Well, let's see. Hold on there, Dawn. Let's go and pull up, and matter of fact, let's go to the comparator. We'll pull up the 4 maps. We'll pull the Euro. We'll grab matter of fact, we'll just grab North Carolina. We'll do the whole thing. And then we'll scroll down here and grab our 10-meter wind gusts. And then we will compare that with the GFS. All right, our 10-meter wind gust getting out here, 28, 23, 31. There's that bigger wind. It's not a ton. Let's flip this and get a wider view. Why did not know? Hello. Where is our East Coast? There we go. That's the 18Z of the GFS. Let's cut that out. And then let's pull up the GFS for our wind gusts there. And we'll run it forward. There goes Jerry. You could see that. 40. Ooh. See, that's what I'm talking about right there as far as the Euro is concerned, because, and it's up here getting towards, south of, the Cape and stuff like that, Cape Cod, and, getting south of Martha's Vineyard and Rhode Island and all this area here north of North Carolina, because on this, let me pull up my crayons? The low is right here, and all of this is onshore flow. The low being right there, all of that is that onshore flow. So, Don, if this were to verify, you be in kind of that offshore, could see a little bit, but right now, it does look like it's going to be to your north as far as the big impacts are concerned. 56 post on Michael today. And yes, Sean, it's in the forecasters discussion. They are still calling for Jerry to be a hurricane in about 48 hours. All right. Oh, if I was in control of the weather, Sammy, I would have taught you real quick to sit down and stop your rain dances. I would have localized it to your neighborhood and taught you real quick. No more rain dancing, ma'am. No. Even though no, I'm not even going to say that because then I'll never live it down if I do. So I'll just leave it alone. All right. So jumping out here to the Eastern Pacific, we have Invest 90E. Currently has a 70% chance of development over the next 48 hours and an 80% chance of development over the next 7 days. As you could see here, I've got a little glitch going on one side of my screen over here on the other monitor. So I had to refresh something over there. We have Priscilla, and then we still have Octave. I have no idea why we're doing Octave, but yeah, that's what we're doing. It's still there, but it's lacking any shower and thunderstorm activity. As you can see here, it's pretty much being eaten by Priscilla. Octave is that pathetic little swirl. And then as you can see with Priscilla, it's starting to unwind quite a bit. It's losing its deep shower and thunderstorm activity and its intensities. There ain't no doubt about it. If this thing, if it wasn't for that trough that is coming down off of the west coast of the United States and eroding the ridge over Mexico, this thing would have never stood a chance. But as you could see, some of that cloud action is headed in that general direction, heading up towards the southeastern U.S. And then Priscilla is forecast to make that type of motion as well. Okay, let's get into the particulars on Priscilla, because this is the biggest threat that we have on the entire board. Out of everywhere across the planet right now, Priscilla is the biggest threat. We're currently located at 22.0 north, 113.0 west, about 205 miles west-southwest of the southern tip of the Baja Peninsula. 70 miles an hour on its maximum sustained winds. Now it is no longer a hurricane, strong tropical storm. Moving northwest at 8 miles an hour with the minimum central pressure has come up to 985 millibars. We still have tropical storm watches in effect for portions of the southwestern part of the peninsula there. And then a tropical storm watch in this case means within 12 hours. And then interest in the other portions of the Baja Peninsula should monitor the progress of Priscilla. But Priscilla is weakening faster and quicker than what was previously anticipated. Wind, obviously, we could see wind in the areas of tropical storm watch. Rainfall, this is the problem. As Priscilla moves off the west coast of Baja California, up to an inch of rain is expected across the Baja Peninsula. Farther north, across the southwestern United States, heavy rain from Priscilla's moisture is expected to lead to 2 to 4 inches, with local storm total amounts to 6 inches across portions of central and northern Arizona, southern Utah, and southwestern Colorado from Thursday into Saturday afternoon. Scattered occurrences of flash flooding are anticipated from central Arizona across southern Utah, across the Four Corners, and into southwest Colorado and far northwest New Mexico. And obviously, surf, stay out of the water. Wait till it goes by. If we take a look at the forecast cone, this area here on the southwestern side of the Baja Peninsula is the one that is under the tropical storm watch. As you can see, the wind field is close but not touching land. So right now we're still in a watch phase. On top of that, this storm is weakening as well. And now it is not even forecast to be much of anything other than a remnant low by the time it reaches up here further north up the peninsula. We look at the spaghetti plots. They mostly agree in that scenario as well, to where it moves up and then we've got this huge cluster right here of all these tracks. But then look north of it. You've got just a couple of the lines. There's not much at all. It falls apart, and it falls apart rather quickly. Now again, our key messages, these are critical. We've obviously got our tropical storm conditions are possible in our tropical storm watch area. This is the big one right here. Moisture associated with Priscilla will lead to heavy rainfall and a flash flood risk across portions of Arizona, southern Utah, through the Four Corners and into southwestern Colorado and far northwestern New Mexico from Thursday into Saturday. Yes, we covered this in the hazards affecting land, but I'm going to cover it again because you don't see a lot for the rain. You see the 2 to 4 inches. It doesn't look, like, oh wow, we don't see those big bright colors, but this is area of the desert Southwest. You don't get this kind of rain. This is literally like an entire month of rain in like a couple days. That doesn't bode well with the environment. Never does. And as you can see, especially in areas of higher terrain, we could definitely see flash flooding. Areas to where we've had old wildfires and burn scars, that's going to be prone to flash flooding. And if we take a look at the 7-day rainfall forecast, I'm going to run this back to day 4. There we go. This is Priscilla. All right, this is 72 hours. This is Priscilla. That's Raymond. Oh, but who's Raymond? That's Invest 90E. That's the moisture from that one as well. So this could be a 1-2 punch for folks here in Arizona. So please, if you've got friends and family out here into the southwestern United States, please let them know, exercise caution, do not drive through flooded roadways. No driving through flood waters. The only time that you are allowed to drive through flood waters is if the waters themselves are not moving and you can very clearly see the center line in the road. But then, even if that is the case, don't go fast. Especially if you're in a residential neighborhood, because the wake that's going to come off of your vehicle as you push through that water, all of those wake waves are going to smack up against those houses on both sides of the road. So please, folks, just let's exercise caution over this upcoming week out here into the desert Southwest. Do not drive through flooded roadways, and maybe give yourself a little bit of extra time for some travel, because the inclement weather, I am certain, if it's anything like the state of Florida, which I know there's a lot of retirees in the southwestern United States, They're not going to be used to the rain, and they may not drive very quickly in the rain like you would normally see on sunny days. You would expect people not to do that just for safety precautions. Give yourself a little bit of extra time to travel. So this way you're not trying to navigate running late in wet roads and stuff like that. So that's all I'm asking of people is just to please stay weather aware, check with your local National Weather Service office, heed any flash flood warnings that are issued. If your local officials say that you need to evacuate an area, you need to evacuate that area. Now, I'm certainly not saying that that is going to be the case. Please do not misunderstand me. I'm just, for reference sake, if you are issued something from your local officials, heed those orders. All right. Now, the flash flooding. This is our flash flood risk. This is coming from the Weather Prediction Center. As you can see, this is excessive rainfall outlook over the next 3 days, is this one big graphic. Day 1 through Thursday morning. As you can see, we have a marginal risk. That's some of that cloud cover and, activity and moisture that we saw bursting up to the north on the current satellite. Tomorrow, Thursday morning through Friday morning, we have a slight risk, 2 out of 4 for southern parts of California, getting into parts of western Arizona and extreme southwestern Utah here. Nevada, you're not in the slight, but you are in the marginal risk. Anywhere in the green, you could see at least a 5% chance, but lower than 15% chance of flash flooding. It's only going to take one big strong storm to create flash flooding out here. And just one thunderstorm can do it. And it would be isolated, but it could. And then, as we see here, Friday morning through Saturday morning, this slight risk expands quite a bit. Most of central and northern Arizona here, getting into a decent portion of southeastern and southern Utah, southwestern Colorado, and extreme northwestern portions of New Mexico. Areas in elevated terrain, please do not drive through floodwaters. I cannot stress that enough. Anytime we see this, it's the flash flood risk is there. Anywhere in the yellow has at least a 15% chance and up to a 39% chance. If this turns red, then we've got some concerns. Big concerns, because then that would at least be 40% chance of seeing excessive rainfall that leads to flash flooding. So right now, 15 to 39% chance located within this yellow shaded area. If you know anybody within this yellow shaded area, or you yourself live in this yellow shaded area, please exercise caution and do not drive through flood waters. If we look at the discussion, right there, very first sentence, the satellite presentation of Priscilla has fallen apart quickly over the past 18 hours. Over the past 6 hours, deep convection has gradually diminished. That's a good sign. We're still going to get a lot of moisture. All right, we're still going to see it. And it is forecast to continue to weaken, becoming a post-tropical remnant low in the next 48 hours, and then being completely dissipated by 72. That doesn't mean that we're not going to see a decent amount of convection that would, or moisture that ends up over the land in the southeast or southwestern United States. Now let's jump over here to old pathetic little looking Octave. And if you guys got any questions on Priscilla, just feel free and ask. Alrighty, Dawn. If you need me, you know how to get in contact with me. Just go ahead and jump into our chat group, and I'll be more than happy to help out. And again, pathetic looking octave is currently located at 15.8 north, 115.1 west, maximum sustained winds of 45 miles an hour, east northeast at 12 miles an hour, and a minimum central pressure of 1,002 millibars. There are no watches or warnings in effect and no hazards affecting land. If we look at the forecast track, this is sad. And we're going to come over here to the discussion, and it's this sentence right here. It is possible that octave could dissipate at any time over the next 24 hours, even though dissipation isn't explicitly forecast until beyond 24 hours. If this does not get any convection, it's going to go away. If it does not produce any shower or thunderstorm activity, it's just going to die. And they'll pull it. They will certainly pull it off the NAC forecast. And it's not very far from Priscilla. It is being absolutely sheared to death by Priscilla. And again, you don't even see it here on the Euros ensembles. They're like, what's octave? Where? When? How? What? It's not even here. So, yes, we see it on satellite. The rotation is there. The name storm is definitely there. It's out over the open waters. It's no threat to land. But it's coming off the board very, very soon. And if we look at the Euro legacy ensembles, again, what we saw, there's 72 hours. There's, Raymond. And then look where that goes. So you're going to end up with a 1-2 punch, Southwest U.S. That's what it's looking like. You're going to end up with that 1-2 punch. And then potentially, there comes another one at day 7 down there south of the Isthmus of Tehuantepec and southern Mexico. If we jump over to the GEFS, same thinking. We'll go 72 hours. There's Raymond. There's 5 days. 7 days. Another round of tropical moisture being strung up into northwestern Mexico and the southwestern United States. Compare that with the Euro AI. Same thing. Absolutely the same thing. You don't need rain. You don't need rain with a name to cause impacts. Even if we weren't to get Raymond, you're still going to get impacts. We're going to see Raymond, likely, being that it has an 80% chance of development over the next 7 days. We're likely to see Raymond. But that moisture is coming regardless, even if we don't see Raymond. And just to compare everybody here with the Google DeepMind, I will highlight it right there. Even the Google DeepMind, for the members that do get it developed, still, same thing. Driving that moisture up into northwestern Mexico and the southwestern United States. All right, jumping out to the western Pacific, Typhoon Hailong is starting to succumb to the shear. South of Japan here, not too far from Tokyo, but well out over the open waters, and is still continuing to move rapidly off to the east-northeast, as you can see here. Currently still a major hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson wind scale at 110 knots, the equivalent of 125 miles an hour. But as you can see here, it is forecast to continue to weaken, even though the wind field is going to expand as it makes its extratropical transition. But it's going to do that expansion while over the open waters. Maybe a little bit of a clip down here on the peninsula just south of Tokyo for some tropical storm force winds. But I promise they're well prepared for minimal tropical storm force winds. And then also, Nakri, we all know that I can't make pronunciations very well, but that is forecast to follow Hai Long, and at least from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. I hope this actually verifies, and as you can see, is forecast to reach typhoon or hurricane strength at 65 knots here south of Japan, and then kind of following in a very similar track to what we've seen with Hai Long. So that's about all that I've got for everybody here tonight. I'm going to check again. Sammy, you crack me up. You do. I appreciate the banter and craziness that we get in our Facebook chat. For the folks on YouTube, if you have a Facebook account, it's pretty entertaining over there in Facebook, because that's where we originated from. We just signed into YouTube this year to help cover everybody. So. All right, all. That's about all that I have. We will be live again tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central here on Facebook and YouTube. We'll go over the latest. Hopefully we keep our percentages down on Jerry. Ooh, I don't like that. Hold on. I saw that on satellite. I've got an automatic refresh on that, and that is becoming an awfully large burst. All right, you run that again. Boom. Look at that. Right there at those last few frames. Boom. Big time blow up of showers and thunderstorms. Real close to the center of circulation as well on the southern side. So, folks out there in the islands, please, please, please keep a very close watch on this. All right? We're hoping for the best. Monitor your local and official weather services. You can find all those right here, if need be. Right here. And if you guys got any questions regarding that, don't hesitate to message the page. We've got a great team of individuals that would be immediate to try to get you the information that you're requesting. So we're definitely here. And again, we've got about another 48 hours of threat as far as where Jerry is concerned. We'll kind of pivot over there to Priscilla, making sure that our friends out there in the desert Southwest are doing okay, keeping an eye on Raymond and the rainfall forecast from there. But once we get past that, it doesn't look like we've got much as far as big threats go, except other than that non-tropical low pressure off the East Coast. So everybody, please stay weather aware. Monitor your official sources, your local National Weather Service office if you're in the United States, or your official meteorological service if you're outside of the United States. And with that, I will talk to you all again tomorrow night. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. We'll see you then. Bye for now.